Hello everyone. From today onwards, we will learn about some interesting topics of medicine. So first, today's topic of discussion is hepatorenal syndrome. So hepatorenal syndrome is a potential cause of AKI in patients with acute or chronic liver disease. Hepatorenal syndrome can be present with any kind of liver disease, whether it is portal hypertension, whether it is CLD or acute hepatitis, acute viral hepatitis. So it can be seen as a complication of any liver disease. So it is the end stage of sequence of reduction in kidney perfusion induced by increasingly severe hepatic injury. So basically hepatorenal syndrome is the result of decrease in renal perfusion because of increasingly hepatic injury. So structurally, our kidneys are normal, but because of hepatic insult, there is decline in kidney function. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So we have to rule out other factors of acute kidney injury before labeling it hepatorenal syndrome. So talking about its pathophysiology, it is found that arterial vasodilatation in splanchnic circulation has main role in hepatorenal syndrome. It has central role in causing AKI, or what we called as hepatorenal syndrome. So main mediator is nitric oxide. There are many mediators involved in hepatorenal syndrome, but the main culprit is nitric oxide. It results into arterial vasodilatation in splanchnic circulation, which results into decrease in renal perfusion, decrease in GFR, and results into activation of RAS, renin-angiotensin system. It results into increased aldosterone release from adrenal medulla, resulting into sodium and water retention, further worsening ascites. So talking about its epidemiology, usually patients have portal hypertension due to cirrhosis. It also presents in severe alcoholic hepatitis or metastatic tumors. It also occurs frequently in acute liver disease patient, but one set of liver pathology which is spared, that is primary biliary cholangitis, is relatively protected from hepatorenal syndrome. So what is the clinical presentation of hepatorenal syndrome? A patient of CLD with portal hypertension with ascites presents with progressively rise in serum creatinine. So this rise in serum creatinine can be because of acute tubular necrosis, which can be drug induced, can be due to infections or sepsis induced. So, as I previously told, this hepatorenal syndrome is a diagnosis of exclusion. We have to rule out other causes before labeling it as hepatorenal syndrome. So, what is peculiar about hepatorenal syndrome? There will be progressive rise in serum creatinine. Often in urinary examination, no urinary sediment is found. The urine routine examination will be bland. There will be no peculiar findings, and the proteinuria will be very minimal. It is less than 500 milligram per deciliter, and urine spot sodium, which is used to differentiate between pre-renal and renal causes, so urine spot sodium will be less than 10 milliequivalent per liter. So these are the peculiar finding of the hepatorenal syndrome. So how we can differentiate whether it is ATN or it is hepatorenal syndrome? A patient of CLD with portal hypertension with ascites may have spontaneous bacterial peritonitis, or he may have some infections for which he is taking he has given amikacin. So amikacin can result into acute tubular necrosis. So we have to differentiate this acute tubular necrosis before labeling it as hepatorenal syndrome. So in case of acute tubular necrosis, the urine spot sodium will be more than 20, but in case of hepatorenal syndrome, it will be less than 10. So first we have to rule out all the causes before labeling it as hepatorenal syndrome. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So talking about its diagnosis, so patient with advanced hepatic failure, portal hypertension will have AKI. So we will clinically evaluate, including microscopic review of the urinary sediment. So in urine, The urine red cell excretion will be less than 50 per high power field when no catheter in place. So without catheter, the red cell count should be less than 50 per high power field, and proteinuria should be minimal. It is either there is no proteinuria or there will be less than 500 milligram per day proteinuria. So we have to exclude any other cause of AKI. So patient can be in shock, it can be pre-renal AKI, so we have to exclude it. Acute tubular necrosis we have already talked because of nephrotoxic drugs like amikacin, colistin, so we have to rule them out. And we also have to look for post-renal causes, that is urinary tract obstruction. So if there is any underlying cause, we can't label it as hepatorenal syndrome, then we have to treat underlying cause. If there is no such underlying cause and there is doubling of serum creatinine from baseline, first we have to discontinue all diuretics, beta blockers, antihypertensive medications, including ACE and ARBs, and if there is any nephrotoxic agent. If there is any improvement after discontinuing all these drugs, so then we can't label it hepatorenal syndrome. So if we have discontinued all these medication and still there is no improvement in kidney function, so we will give patient albumin 1 gram per kg. A total of 100 gram albumin we have to give for 2 days. If there is improvement, still if there is no improvement, we label it as hepatorenal syndrome. So first we have to exclude all the causes of acute kidney injury. We have to rule out pre-renal cause, that is hypotension, shock, renal causes, nephrotoxic drugs, and post-renal causes, that is urinary tract obstruction. So after ruling all the causes, if there is some reversible cause, we will treat it. If there is, after ruling out all the causes, we will discontinue all the culprit medications, and if there is no improvement, we will give albumin challenge. Still there is no improvement, so we will label it as hepatorenal syndrome. So this was how to diagnose hepatorenal syndrome. Basically it's a diagnosis of exclusion. We have to rule out all other things before labeling it as HRS. So HRS is further divided into type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is more dangerous. Prognosis is very poor. There will be 2-fold increase in serum creatinine, more than 2.5 milligram per deciliter, or 50% reduction in creatinine clearance during a period of less than 2 weeks. So in type 1, oliguria may or may not be present. So oliguria is not a compulsory finding of HRS. Oliguria can be present or it may not be present. But type 1 HRS is more dangerous. It has a very poor prognosis. Type 2 is generally less severe. The major feature is the patient will present as with ascites, that is resistant to diuretics. It has somehow little better prognosis than type 1. So in a patient of CLD or any liver disease, how this HRS can be precipitated? There is no clear-cut culprits or no clear-cut reasons why in some patient presents with HRS or some not. So in precipitants, infection has a very important role. GI bleed, SBP in the absence of septic shock. Rapid diuresis sometimes can result into HRS. So like we have already discussed how we discuss the diagnosis of HRS. Now coming to treatment. So ideal treatment is treat the underlying cause. Like in case of alcoholic hepatitis, improvement of alcoholic hepatitis results into improvement in renal function, or treatment of decompensated hepatitis B, or recovery from acute liver function, and in cases liver transplantation can result into improvement in the kidney function. So if liver transplantation is not possible, so what are the medical ways of managing hepatorenal syndrome? So first, we have to look for whether the patient is critically ill and he is in ICU or whether he is in ward. So if patient is in ICU, so we will treat him with noradrenaline or norepinephrine. We have to continue infusion 0.5 to 3 milligram per hour with goal of rising mean BP by 10 mmHg. So we have to start the infusion of norepinephrine. The dose will be 0.5 to 3 milligram per hour with the goal of rising mean BP by 10 to 20 mmHg. And we have to give albumin. So NORAD plus albumin we have to give the patient for at least 2 days as IV bolus. If patient is not in ICU, is not very critically ill, so we will give him terlipressin if available plus albumin. So if the patient is in ICU, so we will give him NORAD plus albumin. If patient, we will continue NORAD infusion with the goal of rising mean BP at least by 10 to 20 mmHg. If patient is in ward, he is stable, so we can give him terlipressin if available. If terlipressin is not available, then we will give octreotide plus albumin. So dose of terlipressin is IV bolus 1 to 2 mg every 4 to 6 hours. If terli not available, we can give octreotide or midodrine. Midodrine can be started at a dose of 7.5 milligram TDS and it can be increased after every 8 hourly up to 15 mg TDS. So midodrine is very important. And after discontinuing noradrenaline and terlipressin, we can switch the patient to midodrine. If medical management failed, so we can, another option is transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunting, but the TIPS has its own disadvantages. So it has increased rate of hepatic encephalopathy, worsening of liver function, bleeding complication. We have to give IV contrast, which itself has a reason for AKI. So we have to avoid TIPS unless and until it's the only option available. Next, we have to start the dialysis or renal replacement therapy. And the treatment of underlying disease is very important. The treatment of liver pathology is very important. So we have to counsel the patient for liver transplantation if despite of all the medical management the kidney function doesn't improve. So how can we prevent the pathogenesis of hepatorenal syndrome? Basically we can't treat it we don't have any much options available for complete treatment of it, but we can have some studies to prevent it. We can use IV albumin 1.5 gram per kg at the time of diagnosis of infection and another dose of albumin on day 3 of antibiotic treatment. In some trials it is found that it has improved the renal function. So 1.5 gram per kg at the time of, at the diagnosis of infection and another dose of albumin at day 3 of antibiotic therapy. So another option we have, we can give norfloxacin or pentoxifylline. It's shown some good results in some of the trials, so we can give pentoxifylline also. So these are the options for prevention of hepatorenal syndrome. So this is all for today. In next lecture we will learn some another interesting topic. Thank you.